be here again at the Calvary Baptist Tabernacle Church to worship and to fellowship with so many of you. I don't know what thoughts went into the naming of the church. I don't know if you appreciate the power in the name. The cross of Calvary, the Baptist Church, and the tabernacle, all with their own powerful meanings in Scripture, have all come together in one. So that whenever we come to a church like this, however we may have come in, we leave spiritually uplifted. And so I want to thank Dr. Calvin Hazel and his worship team for what so far has been a delightful service in honor of God, and especially as we show appreciation to the officers of Her Majesty's prison for their contribution to national security and, most importantly, to nation building. This is a special and perhaps a rare time in which the national community would pause to show respect, to give consideration to the excellent work that these officers, supported by their family and friends, have been given over time to our country. And I wonder if you would, just for a minute, imagine a country like ours without prisons. Just imagine for a moment. There are those who brutally murder, steal, rob, injure, and maim so many people. And imagine one day you heard that they had all escaped and they were back out in our communities. I am sure when you look at it from that perspective, you begin to appreciate the awesome service that these officers are giving to their country and to their nation, and contributing to the peace in our country. So let's give them all a round of applause. I am delighted as Minister of National Security that the Cabinet has come to give its own show of solidarity and support to all those who are serving in Her Majesty's service, prison service. And I want to commend them for this show of solidarity. I believe that this is a good occasion in which they have come. So I want you to give a special welcome to our Attorney General, Mr. Vincent Byron. I ask that he stand, and his wife, Gloria. We thank them both for coming. We have the Honorable Minister of Agriculture, and Eugene Hamilton, and we thank him. And we are looking forward to his visit at the prison farm in Nevis. We also have with us the Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of National Security, Mr. Osmond Petty. We have our National Security Advisor, Major General Stuart Saunders. And we have the Acting Superintendent of Prisons, Mr. Denzel Harris, and all the officers here. I invite them all to stand. Officers, please stand. Thank you very much. The Cabinet membership includes the Honorable Lindsay Grant and Mrs. Wendy Grant. Let's give them both a hand of welcome. And we are certainly delighted that our national hero, the Right Excellent and the Right Honorable Sir Kennedy Simmons and Lady Simmons, we invite them to stand and we thank you for your welcome. I want equally to recognize former Senator Ralph Gomes, who is here. Could you stand? We are delighted that he too has come. And we have, of course, Permanent Secretary in Education, Mr. Vincent Hodge, among several others who are here. And we thank them all. 2 years ago, on Sunday the 30th, 2017, the Ministry of National Security held the first ever Employee Awards and Appreciation Ceremony for Her Majesty's Prison. And today I am privileged to be here in my capacity as Minister of National Security, as the Calvary Baptist Tabernacle Church again plays host as a special service of thanksgiving to honor the officers of Her Majesty's Prison for their outstanding contributions to the people of the Federation. These past and present staff members have demonstrated over the years professionalism and excellence in a number of ways. Some 8 are being especially recognized and honored today. Mrs. Lois Smith, could you stand? Give her a special hand. She is a principal officer and one of the high-ranking females in the prison services. Smithy, as she is affectionately called by her friends and colleagues, has worked for close to 18 years at the prison. She climbed her way up from the ranks, starting as a substitute secretary, and then she became a prison officer, and then she is now, and then senior prison officer. In 2012, she became principal officer. She is one of 2 female principal officers, and her areas of responsibility are finance and human resources. Let's give her a special hand of appreciation. Thank you. We especially, too, want to recognize Ms. Tracy O'Loughlin, senior officer at the prison. Could Tracy stand? Ms. O'Loughlin diligently inputs data with respect to the court and prison entry. She started at the prison way back in 2011 as a basic grade prison officer and was promoted to senior officer in July of 2017. Give her again a special hand of welcome and appreciation. Mr. Kayani Lake is acting senior officer and he hails from Dorset. Kayani Lake has been a member of the Prison Emergency Response Team since its inception. He was a former officer in the Defense Force, and he joined the prison service in 2008, starting as a basic grade prison officer and becoming acting senior officer in January of 2019. In January also, he became attached to the prison farm in Nevis. So we commend him. Thank you. Mr. Daniel Michael, basic grade officer, and he hails from Keon. Daniel Michael started working at Her Majesty's prison in October of 2016. He is described as a very hard-working, basic grade prison officer who can be called upon at any time as he puts in the extra effort. He is respected by the inmates as a man who takes control, and he is viewed as an officer who will climb the ranks further in due course. We certainly do appreciate your service, Mr. Michael. And then from Old Road, we have Miss Ayanta Freeman, basic grade officer. Thank you. Miss Freeman was transferred from working at the New Horizon Juvenile Rehabilitation Center in September 2017. She is described as very professional, efficient in her data processing tasks, which involve entering inmates' records. Let's give Ayanta Freeman another round of applause. We thank you, Ayanta, for your service. We have Mr. Vernal Taylor, basic grade officer for Molyneux. Vernal Taylor started working at the prison in September 2017. He is one of approximately 14 STEP participants who work as basic grade prison officers. In 2018, he was attached to the prison farm in Nevis. He is described as being reserved, code name for quiet, but he has a reputation for focusing on his work, and we certainly do appreciate that about you, Vernal. Thank you very much. We equally want to recognize Mrs. Rosalind Basu. She is a former senior prison officer. Mrs. Basu put in 18 years of dedicated service with Her Majesty's Prison Services, and she retired in 2001. She worked at the Gate Lodge and also assisted the matron, helping to oversee female prisoners. I am advised that in her day, she was the only female senior officer. Currently, there are now 2 female senior officers and 2 acting senior female officers. Let's give Mrs. Basu a round of applause in appreciation for her service. The last but certainly not the least, we want to recognize Mr. Glenville Julius, a former senior officer. Glenville Julius put in 24.5 years with Her Majesty's Prison Service, retiring in 2012. I think he went to Anguilla then, accompanying his wife, who was a reverend in the Methodist Church. He was reinstated in 2014, and he was transferred to government headquarters in 2016, where he has been working in the office of the Prime Minister as an important asset on the headquarters security team. So he supervises the security officers you would see downstairs as you enter. Moreover, Julius also puts his skills as a lay preacher in the Methodist Church to effective use in my office. Every day, he leads me in prayer before I settle into work, and I certainly do appreciate that. And on a few occasions, he has also prayed at the start of our cabinet. His supplications for continued guidance and wisdom, and those quiet moments of communion have been a source of strength and positivity for me. So I thank you, Glenville Julius, for your dual work. We salute all 8, thank you, of the awardees for their contribution to the peace and security of our land, and for their work in assisting offenders of the law on the journey to rehabilitation. I take this opportunity to congratulate and commend them all on behalf of the government and people of St. Kitts and Nevis, and also to applaud the dedication of the 93 employees in Her Majesty's prison system. Of the 34 female members of staff, I'm advised 26 of them are prison officers, which mean the other 8 serve in different other capacities within the system. By comparison, there are 54 male prison officers. So since 2017, we have had an increase in the number of female officers, while the male figure has remained constant. I want to use this occasion then to salute the women who have chosen this line of work for their career development. Give all the women in service in our security forces a round of applause. The prison, like most of the security forces, has been a male-dominated workplace, but is also an environment where the people being served there, that is, the inmates, are also mostly male. At Her Majesty's Prison Services, I'm advised that there are 185 male inmates in St. Kitts and 25 male inmates at the prison farm in Nevis. There are 6 female inmates, all of whom are at Her Majesty's prison in St. Kitts. I want to use this opportunity to encourage more persons to apply for vacancies in our security services. We have about 100 vacancies in our security forces, not at prisons, across the security forces. That is, when you take the vacancies at the defense force, at the police force, at the prisons, and at fire, we have about 100 spots awaiting for disciplined, hard-working young men and women to join those services. It is an interesting career path within law enforcement, and so we want to invite the young people who are out there not working to at least give it a try. Give it a try, for the peace and security of our country require more men and women to stand with law enforcement. And of course, across all those disciplines, we have made provision for persons to excel and to go as far as they can in any other career path within the government service. We have provided for those who would want to go on to do their degrees to do so. And when they come back, they are awarded or rewarded within the police and wherever else the defense force they find themselves. And maybe at the next career fair, we will speak to the wide array of services that are required in the prison and in law enforcement generally, so that you can choose which you want. Do you want to be a counselor? Do you want to be a nurse, a doctor? Do you want to be a cook? Do you want to be the accountant? Because we talked about the senior officer earlier who has responsibility for human resource and finance. So almost every area of management now, we are requiring skilled persons for law enforcement. And we therefore want you to bear that in mind as you go around the communities and you see young men in particular being idle. I want to encourage the parents and guardians that you can't be too picky and keep the children home continuing to be lazy and unproductive because they are waiting for the perfect job. There is no perfect job. And for they who have just left school, what they really need is an appreciation for what real work is about. Real work, the discipline. Because don't fool yourself, we hardly stay in any one job for all the rest of our lives. So we may start working at TDC, we end up at JNF, or we end up in a school. It is expected that over the course of the life of an individual, he or she will change their career path many times. I suppose Mr. Hodge is an exception. Once a teacher, always a teacher. And there are some others who have been exceptions. The Attorney General, he was a teacher, he taught me in sixth form, and he didn't remember until I reminded him. He was a writer, an editor, and all of those other things. Tried his hand at business, and at one point fancied himself a potential cricketer until Eugene Hamilton out him for 0. So it shows really that we can't be so fixated that we want this, that we will never try our hand at anything else. And too many parents who should know better have young people at home sitting down, waiting for the perfect job. You are doing a disservice to them because they could be learning something. It matters not where they start, it is where they will end, how they will move from point A to D, way down to Z. That is what is important. We want to build a disciplined cadre of young people because when they are idle, our grandmothers reported to us, the devil find work for idle hands. So let's keep them busy doing positive things. And it doesn't matter if they start off as a cashier in a supermarket. No harm in that. They are going to learn certain skills. They are going to meet a wide array of people and be exposed to life and living. Never be afraid of honest work. And I just want to give that encouragement to young people and to parents who are pampering the young people too much. When Cain sang, he did a wonderful song. I forget the words, but he talked about saving that wounded soldier. Saving from death that wounded soldier. We need to be out there actively encouraging our young people to save themselves from certain death. Because too many of them, and one is too many, too many of them are going astray in the life of gangsterism. Too many of them are finding it fashionable, even in Sandy Point. Even in Sandy Point, which once held a unique stance and standard in the community, where we look to for leadership. There was a time in our history when we look across the public service, it was as if only Sandy Pointers could be permanent secretaries and senior officers. We ask ourselves, how is it today in Sandy Point? So many young persons appear to be going astray, and we are faced with the challenge of the guns and the drugs too often in our communities. And we wonder how come they told us that Mr. Hodge was a strict disciplinarian, and yet so many of them appear to have gone astray. One is too many. I encourage those of you who are here in the church and who know of others, who are pampering these young people, who are stealing, who are in the gangs, who you know have guns, and protecting them. Clearly from the evidence around us, gang life is no life. What we could be almost certain, if they stay with the gang too long, they are going to lose their life. And you who are holding and hiding the guns in your yard and your farms, you may one day become victim of the lawlessness in the country. I make a special appeal that in this situation in which we are at, you have to take a stand. Sometimes you wonder whether you are with law enforcement officers or you're with the gangsters. For when some of them behave bad and the police rough them up as they ought to be roughed up, because they are creating a roughness in our society, because they are shooting and having shootout, and we don't know when some innocent victim will fall prey for their misbehavior. Sometimes we hear you calling and radio, and instead you condemn those criminals in your community for disturbing the peace. You go on to attack the police officers. We have to make up our mind. When the police are wrong, there's a system for dealing with them. When the defense soldiers are wrong, there's a system to which they must respond, because we have a society of law and order. But when persons are risking their lives, and those criminals, wherever they are, in Sandy Point, in Phillips, in Bastere, in St. Paul's, in Sadlers, wherever they are, in Nevis, we have to bring an end to lawlessness. And it will come. When I was in school, we used to be taught, you will obey either by will or by force. So if they will not come willingly through admonition and encouragement, it will only be the force of law that is going to help us. So I just ask you to have a deeper appreciation for what this lawlessness is doing. And all of us in our communities, you must be able to walk free in any area of Sandy Point or Bastere any hour of the night. And you're not involved in any gun running, gun shooting, or any gangs. They should not compromise your peace and security. So I want to basically end on that note. I diverted a bit. I should have said before I said all that, admonition and encouragement to you, that we want to thank the private sector for their support to the prisons. Several of them have come forward, given gifts, useful items to the work of the prison. I'm advised, for example, that Razzo Construction has donated computers and 25 chairs to Her Majesty's prison. The Regional Security Service, the European Union, have donated desktop computers and several other saws, sewing machines, and equipment in order to facilitate the teaching of technical skills within the prison system. We hear, and we are pleased by that in our prisoners, in our prison, are prisoners who are taking subjects every year and are doing outstandingly well. And we want to commend them and the leadership of the prison for encouraging them, because that will help them in their efforts at rehabilitation. I'm advised they have some fellows in the prison who are so good that their children are now coming to get training and exposure to help them. And we hope that this will again build love for family. And although they are somewhat estranged, they have an opportunity to rebuild and renew acquaintances and make a positive contribution to their family. The government will be expending millions of dollars in the next couple of years to build a modern prison. The one on Keon Street, I am advised, has been there before, long before any of us here, 1840. And it has outlived, in a manner of speaking, its usefulness for all that we must now do to meet the international standards. And so we have already passed the design stage, and we are attempting to raise resources that would assist us in the build-out of this new facility. At that new facility, we want to separate the youngsters from the so-called hardened criminal elements in the system. We want to separate those who are on remand from those who are fully within the prison system. And we also want to have on-site their own health and social services available to them, and develop teaching facilities for them to get on with learning new skills and updating their skills so that when they come out, they can contribute positively to the society. We want to thank the church leadership, and this church has had a very special relationship with Her Majesty's prisons, and that is why it has adopted this particular program. We hope that that partnership will continue, and more of you will develop prison ministry as part of your church outreach, so that we could go spread the message of hope. For even when they are locked away and locked out of society, we sang this morning that important song, that we are winners. We are winners. And we want that message to go to them even while they are incarcerated. They can make a positive change in their lives, and when they would have exited, come back and make a positive contribution to our society. So in closing, thanks to all of you who have come to give support to Her Majesty's prison service. And I say thank you to all the officers who are here and those who could not make it today for the important role and contribution that they are making to the peace and security of our country. May God bless St. Kitts and Nevis, and may God bless us all. I thank you.